Eight thermal-sized cylinders, they run as smooth as you please. Spider's badass fat old abdomen stuck in the bucket seat.
3, 2, 1, 0.
You cannot subvert an enemy which doesn't want to be subverted. Subversion is the term, if you look in a dictionary or criminal code to that matter, usually is explained as a part of activity to destroy things like religion, government system, political, economical system of a country. Starting from Hollywood movie makers to professors of political science and quote-unquote experts on Soviet affairs, Kremlinologists as they call themselves. No James Bond nonsense. The rest, 85%, is always subversion, manipulation of terms. We think that subverter is a person who is going to blow up our beautiful bridges. But according to the law and law enforcement systems of the Western civilization, it's not a crime. Subversion can be only successful when the agent of subversion has a responsive target. Subverter is a student who comes for exchange, a diplomat, an actor, an artist, a journalist like myself. It's most of this activity is overt, legitimate, and easily observable if you give yourself time and trouble to observe it, which means always a destructive, aggressive activity aimed to destroy the country, nation, or geographical area of your enemy. It's a two-way traffic. United States is a receptive target of subversion.
Up the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where Pin the Prosthetic Ass on Brie Larson was just voted the #1 most popular children's game for the 9th consecutive year. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization news roundup for the 3rd week of November 2023. Dateline Dublin. Monday, 13 November. A 39-year-old man who dresses up like a woman and for some reason is allowed to play Gaelic football against young women and teen girls has been announced as this year's recipient of something called the Gallus LGBTQ Plus Sports Award. Marco Valentina, who insists upon being called Julia, was selected to receive the award because, in the words of Gay Community News, he has demonstrated, quote, bravery and grace by continuously standing up for trans women in sport amid considerable transphobic hate and lies. And I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but when I think about a grown-ass man shoulder tackling a 16-year-old girl and spearing her into the turf with all the power his grown-ass man muscles can summon, the first two words I think of are bravery and grace. Because only a filthy bigot would ever suggest that a grown-ass man beating up little girls is anything other than brave and graceful. Reach for a comment on how he plans to celebrate his award. Mr. Valentino said, quote, I will continue beating up little girls until they stop giving me awards for it, end quote. Dateline Washington, Tuesday, 14 November. In a scene more reminiscent of a WWE pay-per-view than a national legislative chamber, tempers flared on Capitol Hill this past Tuesday, with elbows even allegedly being thrown, though with significantly less grace than the late Macho Man Randy Savage used to throw them, as the day began with Republican on Republican violence and acrimony that nearly ended with outright fisticuffs. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia fired the first salvo when she introduced an impeachment resolution on Homeland Security Secretary, enemy saboteur, and skin-suited reptilian space alien Alejandro Mayorkas, only to have the resolution shot down by her fellow Republicans, led by, full disclosure, my own congressman, Representative Darrell Issa of California, who went on to take a personal parting shot at Representative Greene. Is it Green or Taylor Greene? I hate hyphenated last names. I'm going to outlaw them when they make me emperor. When he said, quote, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a hardworking member of Congress, but I believe she lacks the maturity and the experience to understand what she was asking for, end quote. Not to be outdone, Representative Greene, or Taylor Greene, take your pick, I guess, immediately jumped on Twitter and announced that Representative Issa lacks a functioning set of testicles. And since Congress is literally no different from high school, everybody in the Republican caucus quickly had to choose sides between Issa and Greene. Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, who decided to be on Team Marjorie, was doing a live shot with CNN when Representative and erstwhile Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy of California, who had declared for Team Daryl, allegedly walked past and delivered what Representative Burchett described as, quote, a clean shot to the kidneys, end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you your opposition party. It's unclear to this reporter how they always manage to steal defeat from the jaws of victory. It just totally escapes me. Dateline Hollywood, Wednesday, 15 November. Fresh off its historic best ever opening for a film directed by a strong, powerful queer woman of color who don't need no man for nothing, the box office juggernaut known as The Marvels is the proud new owner of the lowest first Monday total in the history of Marvel Studios. And yes, that does include that god-awful Edward Norton Incredible Hulk movie, if you can believe it. So, as if a $46 million domestic, $110 million worldwide opening weekend wasn't disastrous enough, the picture did. And honestly, I can't even believe this number is real. 2.4 million on Monday, which means we're looking at a second week cumulative total of around 16 million. So on the bright side, if it keeps up that pace and stays in theaters for approximately 67 years, they might have an outside chance at making the budget back. Reached for comment, director and strong, powerful queer woman of color who don't need no man for nothing, Nia DaCosta said, quote, the only way to smash the toxic white male heterosexual superhero patriarchy is by everybody seeing my shitty movie at least 14 times, or else the racists win, end quote. Dateline, the LBC, Thursday, the motherfucking 16th of November and shit. Legendary hip-hop superstar Snoop Dogg shook the foundations of everything you think you know about the world this week when he announced, and this is real as God is my witness, he's no longer going to smoke weed. Which is a bit like Santa Claus saying he's going to go clean shaven and work off his beer gut. Or Elvis saying he's going to swear off fried peanut butter and bacon sandwiches. But it's okay, folks. We can all get through this together, one bong load at a time. Because if there was ever an occasion when it feels like the whole world's gone mad and there's no place to seek solace except in the devil's lettuce, I think we can safely say that this is such an occasion. But let's hear it from Mr. Dog himself. Quote, after much consideration and conversation with my family, I have decided to give up smoke. Please respect my privacy at this time. End quote. And I love that last part, as if he's bereaved over the death of a loved one or something. Please respect my privacy at this time? Dude? I feel like the duty of telling you this shouldn't fall to me, but evidently it does, so here it is. You did retain the option of not sharing this news with the entire world. You did retain the option of giving up the sin spinach and keeping it to yourself. So the please respect my privacy thing, it rings just a little bit hollow to this reporter. It's almost like you wanted to get your name in all the headlines as quickly as possible, and that was the easiest route you could think of. Call me a hopeless cynic, I guess. Oh, and if this dude actually abstains from weed for 90 days, I will do this program buck-ass naked. Dateline Soul, Friday, 17 November. And speaking of earth-shattering news that's sure to have wide-ranging cultural implications, the government of South Korea has announced its intention to ban the sale and consumption of dog meat. Speaking at a meeting of government officials and animal rights activists, Yu Wee-dong, policy chief of the ruling People Power Party, said, quote, it is time to put an end to social conflicts and controversies around dog meat consumption through the enactment of a special act to end it. End quote. Though the bill is expected to receive broad bipartisan support in the legislature, Korean dog meat farm nobody should ever want. They're fighting mad over what they perceived government intrusion into their businesses and livelihoods. Reach for comment. The famous canine
Well, we seem to be having some technical difficulties on that end of the universe. How are we doing today? Welcome to the Blast Radius. I am echoing in my own ear because I'm a moron. Turn down all the way down. How are we doing? What's going on? What's shaking, bacon? Let me fix a few things here. We'll get that out of the way. You know, that's a good quote. I like that one myself. Not sure where to go with this next one. He was kind of the ramrod on this whole scene. We were gonna do the thing with the thing in us, but we failed to do that thing. And his device is currently not connecting properly. So I'm unsure where to go here. Because what we were going to cover involves something's happening. Cool. And we've almost got a green screen and we're back.
Not sure what happened there.
It started getting choppy. I let it go for about 3 minutes before I kind of hopped in. It went silent for a full 30 seconds. And I
did it? Jesus Christ. Oh well, guess I'll have to reshoot the news roundup for.
Please do, and we're going to do this right now because I love it so much.
Tactical nuke incoming!
And only because I enjoy it.
Well, I enjoy it too. You get no objection from me.
All right,
Tactical nuke incoming.
Yeah, it's supposed to be poignant and funny, but you know, it just seems disappointing now. I'm sorry, everybody. Medal of Honors. This is the general discussion of the night.
Yes.
Or you want to speak somewhere else?
And should I just launch into my little preamble before we get into the specifics?
Okay. All right. We'll do that. And if you crap out, we'll just pretend like it didn't.
Yeah. Happen. If I crap out, just wing it. So, medals of honor, as we all know, the Medal of Honor is the most lofty military decoration that one can win when serving in the armed services of the United States of America. But there is rather a lot of confusion about the Medal of Honor because there have been times in our history when it has been handed out, maybe not according to as lofty a standard as we apply today, but between the Civil War and the First World War, you had medals of honor being handed out for some pretty ridiculous things like saving a guy from drowning or putting out a fire or making your recruiting quota. That last one is actually a real thing. But getting all the way back to the beginning, up until about 150 years ago, it had never occurred to anybody to give out medals or awards or decorations for heroism or good heroic conduct in battle, because why would you? Now, over in Britain, the way it usually went was if you were of sufficiently gentlemanly status and you acquitted yourself really well during a battle, either on land or on sea, then the way you would be recognized for that You would be given a knighthood or a peerage. To take the example of Horatio Nelson, when his first big famous battle where he acquitted himself admirably was the Battle of Cape St. Vincent, where he boarded a Spanish ship, captured it, used that as a bridge to board a second Spanish ship, captured that one. So the Admiralty says, this is a really badass thing this guy has done. What can we reward him with? And the way you got rewarded was they gave you a knighthood. So then he becomes Sir Horatio Nelson. A couple years later, his next big battle is the Battle of Cape St. Vincent, or no, Battle of the Nile. We already did St. Vincent, and he once again wins a great smashing victory. And we can't give you a knighthood this time, so we're going to give you a peerage. So he winds up being Viscount Nelson. But outside of that, there really was no mechanism for recognizing heroism in combat, except being mentioned in dispatches, which still exists. You can be, when the general or the admiral, if you did something really awesome, then they say, so-and-so did an awesome thing in this battle, and it's in my report. And that becomes part of your personal record, that you were mentioned in dispatches. But as far as medals, there really was nothing. Over here in the United States, meanwhile, all we had was the Purple Heart, which was the idea of General George Washington during the Revolution, that there should be some kind of trinket that we should hand out to our men who get wounded in service of the Revolution. And that's why, of course, the Purple Heart up to this day has the picture of George Washington on it, because it was his idea completely. But then you get to the Civil War, and it starts occurring to everybody that we don't really have any way of recognizing great distinctive actions in combat in the face of the enemy, except with the Purple Heart. And the Purple Heart doesn't really apply, because that's something we just give out because you got wounded. So there you have the origin of the Medal of Honor. And they make a Navy version and an Army version. And between the Civil War and all the way into the First World War, there are no decorations in the U.S. military except the Purple Heart and the Medal of Honor. It's all the way to the Second World War before they start creating the Bronze Star and the Silver Star and your Distinguished Service Crosses and all that, because it occurs to them that we need to devise some system of recognizing valorous actions in combat that don't rise to the level of being awarded the Medal of Honor. And along with that comes a lot of retroactive, maybe we should withdraw this medal that we gave this guy for hitting his recruiting quota. And it becomes, as a matter of tradition and precedent, that the Medal of Honor becomes very, very difficult to get, and it is only it's never awarded in peacetime anymore. It's only awarded for action in the face of the enemy, in which conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity is displayed on the part of the man being awarded. So you get all the way to the Civil War, and then we start getting medals of honor handed out. Who was the first man to receive 2 medals of honor? Well, his last name was Custer, and he died at Little Bighorn, but his first name was not George. It was George Custer's little brother, Tom Custer. And I'm going to pull up both of his citations right now so I can read them out. And in the interim, sir, you say something.
Louis Shaw sing the Valley Vision. Louis Shaw sing the Valley Vision. I'm actually here for comic relief.
And you do it well.
I'm supposed to be on vacation. I'm actually not even supposed to be here, but I am here because I'm still here.
I'm not even supposed to be here today. It's like I'm watching Clerks.
I know. How much do you love that movie?
Not as much as I used to, but still a little bit.
Honestly, it was groundbreaking at the time, even though it was exactly what you would expect from the people that made it.
This is true.
The intrepid nature of the production of that film shows you the type of people you're dealing with. The only problem is they ended up in Hollywood, and it happened. It all just happened. Kevin Smith was subsumed by the lizard people, and now we don't get any good He-Man cartoons, and I'm angry.
Yeah, what's the deal with that Kevin Smith He-Man show? Yeah, do you have any explanation for that?
Yeah, I have a small explanation. You're not going to like it because it really doesn't make any solid sense. So there was an interview 12.5 years ago, back during the I think it was Dogma had recently come out, and he was doing.
I love Dogma. Dogma is still one of my favorite pictures.
And they come across him at some con or something, and they were talking about various projects that they had in the works between him and different other people involved with the old Clerk saga. And somebody asked if he'd been approached about a He-Man series, and he said, "Oh God, no, I hope not. I mean, it's like the most god-awful cartoon ever made," or something like that.
We understood that when we were 10.
Yeah, sure. We don't have a problem with that. And so nobody made a big deal out of it until he got the opportunity to do He-Man. And boy, did that shit age like fine milk.
Yeah, okay, I've got the citation. The first one. Are we ready, or are you finished?
Big picture.
The President of the United States of America, in the name of Congress, takes pleasure in presenting the Medal of Honor to Second Lieutenant Thomas Ward Custer, United States Army, for extraordinary heroism while serving with Company B, 6th Michigan Cavalry, in action in Wilcomac, Virginia. Capture of the flag on 3 April 1865. And yes, you actually could get a Medal of Honor just for capturing the enemy's flag. And I'm gonna find the some more specifics of the action in question here. The second one is more impressive, though.
Little Bighorn, huh?
And the obviously the Medal of Honor citations are much more fun to read out today than they were 150 years ago. They used to have more brevity to them than they do now.
How you doing, Grim Ben? Welcome to the show, bud.
Hi, Ben.
Wrong one. So they're just kind of tossing these things out into the Civil War, or is it after the Civil War?
It's the award originates, I think the Army award originates in 1861 and the Navy one in 1862. So, and then you have, like I said, because there are no other decorations in the military except the Purple Heart. You've got the period post-Civil War, pre-First World War, when there are a lot of really ridiculous medals of honor passed out for things that don't warrant the Medal of Honor, and 911 of them were ultimately withdrawn, which is a good thing because they were doing nothing but dragging down the prestige of the award, and we want this award to have maximal prestige as much as it can have. We want it to be, and bear in mind also that it had just been in the mid 1850s during the Crimean War, when the British military had instituted the Victoria Cross for the first time, which they had a similar conundrum, because if you're a gentleman and you do a great thing in battle, you can be made a knight or you can be given a peerage. But if you're not a gentleman and you do something just as great, the only thing that can happen is that you get mentioned in dispatches. And it was decided that's not quite good enough. We need some kind of award that we can give out. And so that's where the Victoria Cross originates, which all of the medals were pressed from metal taken from captured Russian cannons during the war, and right up to this very day, those are still the medals that they're handing out.
Cool.
All right. Custer earned his first Medal of Honor for actions during the Battle of Namazine Church, 3 April 1865. Among Union forces charging Confederate barricades, Custer had his horse leap a barricade while coming under fire. The Confederates fell back in confusion before him when he saw the color bearer. Racing forward, he seized the flag of the 2nd North Carolina Cavalry from the bearer and commenced those around him to surrender. He took 3 officers and 11 enlisted men as prisoner, took them back behind the federal column, and requisitioned another horse, as his first had been shot out from under him during the charge. And I can continue straight into the second award if you like.
Sure. You're already up there.
Similar actions at the Battle of Sailor's Creek resulted in Custer being the first American soldier to receive 2 medals of honor. Riding alongside Colonel Charles E. Capehart, when the command to charge was given, he raced his horse forward the enemy barricades through a line of rifle fire, then leapt the barricade to be surrounded by the enemy. He discharged his pistol to both sides, scattering the enemy. He noticed Confederates attempting to make a new battle line and saw the color bearer they were rallying to. Custer charged the bearer. Colonel Capehart reported the rest of the events in a letter to Libby Custer. Quote, I saw your brother capture his second flag. It was a charge made by my brigade at Sailor's Creek, Virginia, against General Ewell's corps. Having crossed the line of temporary works in the flank road, we were confronted by a supporting line. It was from the second line that he wrested the colors single-handedly and only a few paces to my right. As he approached the colors, he received a shot in the face which knocked him back on his horse, but in a moment he was upright in the saddle. Reaching out his right arm, he grasped the flag while the color bearer reeled. The bullet from Tom's revolver must have pierced his heart. As he was falling, Captain Custer wrenched the standard from his grasp and bore it away in triumph. And I'll find the citation here momentarily.
Familiar with the history guy? He does excellent videos on this.
I love me some history guy.
Who's the other guy? Townsend, that does the colonial / I guess it would be colonial era.
Oh yeah. I know the guy you're talking about.
Homie built him a full colonial house by hand out there with colonial tools, man. That's cool. That's living.
That is being awesomely devoted to history.
Right. That's the place I'm going on vacation. They have one of those functional plantations that was abandoned like post-Civil War and then reoccupied like late 20s or so. They went back in and made it sort of a museum type thing where, no joke, there's an entire community of folks that live over there where the slave quarters were and dress period correct and just come and go. Like, they speak Gullah. Anyway, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and people like that are invaluable. People who live the history. And, you know, speaking of Tom Custer, I was just at the Little Bighorn battlefield a few years ago. So that's all fairly fresh in my mind. And it's the best battlefield, the best museum. I love battlefields and museums that are like that. Bare bones, not very fancy, pretty old, run down, dilapidated, but the people who work there, the Rangers especially, they are so invested in their job, and they care about the history so much, and it makes it such an invaluable experience when you go and hear them talk. Like the ranger who gave the talk on the day we went, you can tell this guy lives every day of his life in June 25th, 1876. His whole job is knowing as much about that day and the events of that day in this place as he possibly can. And if I had less of an aversion to government employment, I could see that being a job I would want to do, because I think it's an invaluable job. And I think the people who do it deserve all kinds of admiration. And furthermore, if you want to talk about rewarding, instructive battlefield visits, Little Bighorn, I think is just about as good as it gets, because how many 150-year-old battlefields can you visit where not only is the terrain totally unchanged from the day of the battle, but there is a marker where every man fell.
Right.
You can tell absolutely everything that happened in the battle just by what you see in front of you. And for military history fans who haven't been there, I can't recommend it highly enough.
Might have to make that trip.
Yeah, it's damn well worth it, I'm telling you.
So we got the history guy talking about Mr. Thomas Ward Custer.
Beautiful.
I'll let that one roll.
Yeah, he can do it better than I can.
He covers the whole thing, man. It's beautiful.
Yep.
I want you to imagine a military career. A young man so intent on serving the Union during the Civil War that he lied about his age and enlisted at just the age of 16. A young man who, as a private, served in the center of the line in the deadliest major battle of the Civil War. A young man who, over the course of the war, rose in rank, enlisted as a private, and by the end of the war was a brevet major. A young man who, through acts of exceptional heroism, was awarded not one, but 2 Medals of Honor. The first soldier in the United States Army to be so honored. You would think that such a soldier would be famous, might be one of the most famous soldiers of the Civil War, and yet there was such a soldier, and his name is barely remembered for a very simple reason. It was overshadowed by the name of his much more famous older brother. And that is too bad, because the military career of Thomas Ward Custer deserves to be remembered. Emanuel Custer and Maria Ward Kirkpatrick from rural Ohio had 7 children together, but the first 2 died in infancy. Thomas Custer, born in 1845, was the 3rd boy to survive infancy, after his older brother Nevin, born in 1842, and his oldest brother, George Armstrong Custer, born in 1839. A younger brother, Boston, and a sister, Margaret, would be born later. George Custer, who the family called Autty over his first attempts to pronounce his middle name when he was a toddler, was a charismatic, handsome, and athletic boy, and he set his mind on a career in the military. He secured an appointment to West Point and graduated as an officer in the U.S. Army in 1861, just a few months after.
That ain't no small feat.
Nope.
Back then, that was some serious grits, bro.
Damn right.
See, if you got accepted to West Point, that was proof alone that you had the minerals.
Yeah, and that's also, since we're on the subject, that is one of the fringe benefits of being a Medal of Honor recipient, is that your children get automatic admission into any of the service academies.
Good genes.
Yep.
Oh, what did I do?
Hey, gang.
I did something horrible, and I do apologize.
That's all right.
That's not right. I did all the bad things. I'll fix it. Say something.
You're going to fix it, and we're going to be just fine. We're going to get back to that Tom Custer story.
The family called.
Go ahead.
The technical issues are part of the show.
There's actually
man.
3 Custer brothers and a brother-in-law who fell at Bighorn.
Middle name when he was a toddler.
Suck at this job. I do apologize. Try that
We're
again.
professionals, ladies and gentlemen.
I promise. Damn it. You got it? You done? You good?
Yep, go for it.
You got any more pressured
Nope, let it
speech?
roll.
All right.
Was a charismatic, handsome, and athletic boy, and he set his mind on a career in the military. He secured an appointment to West Point and graduated as an officer in the U.S. Army in 1861, just a few months after the first shots of the Civil War. Well, naturally, the brothers, who all looked up to George, who was the leader of the pack, all wanted to follow him into the service. Nevin tried. He enlisted, but he had an ill-timed bout of rheumatism and was mustered out after only a couple of weeks. And Thomas, the next oldest, was just 16, 2 years too young to sign up for the Army. But that didn't stop him from trying. He tried. He was refused due to his age. He tried again and lied about his age, and in September of 1861 was mustered in as a private in Company H of the 21st Ohio Volunteer Infantry. The 21st Ohio was part of the 45,000-strong Union Army of the Cumberland, under the command of Major General William Rosecrans. In December 1862, they...
You want to respond to that?
Just did.
You got her. I got you.
faced the Confederate Army of Tennessee, commanded by General Braxton Bragg, in front of the Tennessee town of Murfreesboro, along a freezing narrow waterway known as Stones River. 17-year-old Private Tom Custer and the boys of the 21st Ohio were smack in the middle of the line. For 3 days, Bragg threw his army at Rosecrans. The Union lines were thrown back. They bent, but they did not break. In 2 massive attacks, Bragg was unable to dislodge Rosecrans. Realizing that Rosecrans would continue to get reinforcements, Bragg withdrew. The battle was a tactical draw, but the Union held the ground, and the Confederacy lost the hope of controlling Central Tennessee, a critical event in the campaign in the West. Of the 76,400 soldiers who participated in the battle on both sides, 24,645 were killed or wounded. It was, proportionally, the highest casualty rate of any major battle of the Civil War. The 21st Ohio, who captured an artillery battery in a counterattack, took 159 casualties. After the Battle of Stones River, Tom managed to secure a position as an orderly for a succession of brigade and division commanders until he was eventually on the staff of General Ulysses S. Grant and promoted to the rank of corporal. It was in that role that he saw some of the most vicious battles in the West, including Missionary Ridge and Chickamauga. But in October of 1864, Auty, who was by then a brigadier general of cavalry, managed to secure Tom a commission as a lieutenant in the 6th.
Auty.
Yep. 23-year-old general.
Yeah, right. Like, what kind of horrendous shit do you have to do to catch those stars that early? Bro.
You have to try really hard to get killed and not succeed.
Right? Be an absolute loser at dying.
Yes, that's it right there.
Beautiful and a boss, Chad. Right?
Michigan cavalry in a position as his brother's aide-de-camp. The final phase of the U.S. Civil War occurred in the spring of 1865, when the forces of Ulysses S. Grant finally broke through Robert E. Lee's defense works and ended the 10-month siege of Petersburg. But Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia managed to escape, and Lee realized that his only hope of continuing the war was to reach North Carolina and join up with the Confederate Army there under the command of General Joseph Johnston. Grant knew that if he could prevent Lee from getting to North Carolina, he could end the war. The Appomattox Campaign was a series of running battles between Grant's advance forces and Lee's rear guard, and Custer's cavalry was in the thick of the fight. Time and again, Thomas distinguished himself in the chase. He was given brevet promotions. A brevet rank can mean a couple of things, but in Tom Custer's case, it meant a warrant giving a commissioned officer a higher rank title as a reward for gallantry or meritorious conduct, but without conferring the authority, precedence, or pay of a real rank. Such promotions were common during the Civil War. Tom was a brevet major by April. He had a horse shout out from under him at the Battle of Five Forks on April 1st. On April 3rd, Custer's cavalry engaged 3 regiments of Confederate cavalry near a place called Namazine Church. It was part of Lee's rear guard, and in a short, sharp action between cavalry units, Tom led the charge. He jumped over a hastily built Confederate breastwork and there captured 3 Confederate officers, 11 Confederate soldiers, and the battle flag of the 2nd North Carolina Cavalry.
Which was a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, he had to have done that with his Navy pistol.
Yeah. And
there was nothing else that he would have been armed with that would have carried enough rounds to threaten 6 people.
And capturing the enemy's flag in the context of modern 21st century warfare almost sounds silly and quaint, but you know, when you consider that the infantry tactics in our Civil War were basically still Napoleonic era, and the flag was the regimental flag was a big damn deal, because that's your rallying point. You can't hear shit on the battlefield. You can hardly see anything from all the smoke that's everywhere and dust and everything. And the rallying point of the regimental flag, if you take that away, you leave that entire unit in disarray. So that's a big damn deal. That you know, and if you commit some conspicuous act of gallantry and intrepidity in trying to take that flag, then that's a really big deal, and it does warrant being decorated that highly in the context of the way war was fought at that time.
I kind of disagree on that. At this point in the Civil War, you're largely looking at Napoleonic tactics. But that doesn't really survive the Civil War. The Napoleonic
that transition happens during the war.
Right. There's like a random Tuesday where they're like, wait, hold on. They're just murdering us. They're just shooting our officers. They're not even, it's complete mayhem out there. we need to change tactics, and they do.
And
It works.
I always feel bad for the infantry officers, because all your men behind you have got rifles, and you're out in front of them, leading
With a
them into
sword.
the fray with a saber
and a flag, right?
Yeah.
Stay close, kid. Don't wander off.
Yep. all the privates and corporals and sergeants have got ranged weapons, but congratulations, Mr. Officer, you get a bladed weapon. Good luck.
Yeah. Cut a motherfucker to ribs was that.
And
shit
again,
there.
that's just, a nonsensical holdover from previous eras of warfare. And a lot of that stuff they don't get rid of until the First World War. So some of the lessons that were learned in our Civil War, they had to relearn them in 1914 and 15.
You're not wrong. You are exactly right. There was a bunch of lessons that were learned. Hey, West Side Accountability, welcome in.
Hi, West Side.
They failed. All right. So the concept of breastworks were dropped, and the trench concept was adopted towards the tail end of the Civil War in several locations. But it was the early birth, World War I style.
Particularly during Sherman's march.
Yeah. We could do a whole show on that one,
Yeah.
I might know a little bit about that one.
Possibly.
They only burned our courthouse. That's all. Orange, we was just hanging out and growing cotton, a little bit of tobacco.
We will make Georgia howl.
Just make them scream, squeal. Oh boy!
For his gallant action that day, Tom Custer was awarded the Medal of Honor. The decisive battle of the Appomattox Campaign came just 3 days later on a hill in front of a little creek that was called Sailor's Creek. Grant had finally caught up to Lee, and 2 of Lee's 3 corps were forced to engage in the desperate action at the Battle of Sailor's Creek. The Army of Northern Virginia was literally fighting for its very life, and in the brutal combat, when the Union infantry could not force the Rebs to break, the cavalry was ordered to charge. Tom Custer was the first cavalryman to get across the second line of Confederate breastworks, where he grabbed a hold of yet another Confederate battle flag. But the flag bearer drew his pistol and shot Tom Custer point blank in the face, so close that it caused powder burns. The bullet entered under his cheek, skimmed along his skull, and exited behind his right ear. And Tom Custer, in one motion, still hanging onto the flag, drew his pistol and killed the flag bearer. His face bleeding profusely, he triumphantly rode back with the battle flag of the 2nd Virginia Reserve Battalion. He rode up to his brother and proudly proclaimed, "Armstrong, the damned Rebs have shot me, but I got my flag." He tried to return to the fight.
4 letters. CHAD.
Those bastards shot me. Here's your flag.
They shot me in the face, and I got their fucking flag.
I'm going to go back over there and shoot a few more of them.
Yeah.
And he did, right? Oh,
yeah.
God. Boss. Jesus.
Fight. His brother had to have him forcibly restrained to be taken to the surgeons to treat his wound. Astoundingly, Tom Custer had captured his 2nd Confederate battle flag and earned his 2nd Medal of Honor in a period of just 4 days. He was the first soldier in U.S. history and one of only a handful to receive 2 Medals of Honor.
38.
The desperate, brutal Battle of Sailor's Creek was the death blow of the Confederacy. Lee lost more than 8,000 soldiers killed or wounded. Lee surrendered to Grant 3 days later. After the war, Tom Custer stayed in the Army. He had the regular rank of lieutenant.
Wouldn't you surrender? That guy's coming after me. I shot him in the face. He's still coming. He took my shit and left.
I shot him in the face, and he stole my flag, and he still wants to fight.
He's mad. I didn't do that, but make him mad. But I shot him.
I shot him in the face, and it just pissed him off.
We quit. We're not. No. How many more?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about gallantry and intrepidity? There it is.
Absolute boss, dude.
But the brevet rank of lieutenant colonel. Awfully good for someone who signed up as a private. He followed his brother's career in the West and the Indian Wars and was with his brother on the Black Hills expedition in 1874 that discovered gold. And he was with his brother on that fateful day, June 25th of 1876, when the 7th Cavalry faced off against a force of Sioux and Cheyenne warriors in what has become known as the Battle of the Little Bighorn. After the battle, Tom's body was found a few feet away from that of his more famous brother. Nearby was the body of his younger brother, Boston. Also on the battlefield was the body of his brother-in-law, James Calhoun, husband of his sister Margaret, and the body of their nephew, Henry Armstrong Reed, who had accompanied his uncle's expedition as a civilian and was just 18 years old. That iconic battle was a bad day for the Custer family.
You can say that again.
Yeah, seriously.
That was hard. That's hardcore, dude. He's like,
what? I mean, in terms of families, I think the only story we have to match that is the story of the Sullivans, right?
Yeah. Well,
as far as that many members of a family getting killed at the same time
at the same battle, you might actually beat Sullivans. Actually,
I think it's the Custers and the Sullivans and nobody else.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I can't think of one. If there is one, it's not coming to mind.
I can't either. And then after the Sullivans, they changed all the rules so that you couldn't have that many brothers serving aboard the same ship or in the same unit.
What was the next Medal of Honor you was wanting to look at? Was the super pilot? Is that right?
Oh yeah. Do we want to do aces in a day? Yeah, that's our other broad topical area. It's double medals of honor and aces in a day, which aces in a day means, of course, you shot down 5 guys in a day.
Are we going David McCampbell or
yeah?
Irish?
Let's go David McCampbell, because David McCampbell has the distinction of not only being an ace in a day, but he was an ace in a day on 2 separate occasions. The only American who owns that distinction.
Right. That shit, ace in a day could be its own series, dude.
Oh, I know. It should be.
All right, so what do we have his stuff up? Have you done that part?
Give me 90 seconds.
Go for it. I'm gonna poke around over here and see what we're looking at. Okay. So we're gonna do this tidbit right here.
Duty in the Pacific, David McCampbell would ultimately be credited with 34 air-to-air victories, a feat unprecedented in naval aviation. This former collegiate diving champion and decorated officer is more than just the Navy's all-time fighter pilot. He is the Navy's ace of aces.
That's pretty freaking impressive, dude.
And this guy didn't even start out as a pilot. He started out as an LSO. And he joined up before the war in May of 1940. And he survived the sinking of the Wasp off Guadalcanal on 15 September 1942. He then returns to the U.S., gets his flight instruction, gets promoted to lieutenant commander, and then gets sent back out to the Pacific. He forms Fighter Squadron 15 on 1 September 1943. And he's then reassigned as CAG, Commander Air Group 15, in February of 44 to September 44, where he was flying off the carrier Essex from April to November 44. 6 months of combat, 2 major sea battles, the first and second battles of the Philippine Sea, 20,000 hours of air combat operations.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
I don't even have that on my PlayStation.
Now, the first of his ace in a day exploits was on 19 June 1944 during the famous Marianas Turkey shoot.
Oh my God, that is one of my favorite battles to recreate in simulator.
Yep.
It is. I hate to be that evil bastard, but God, it is so much fun.
Oh, I know. And it was like that in real life. That's why they called it the turkey shoot.
Yeah, dude. It's just like, oh, there's another one. Why are they so slow?
Anyway,
Hey, look, there's no-
McCampbell shoots down 5 Judy dive bombers that day, becoming an ace in a day. And later that afternoon, on his next mission after lunch, he shoots down 2 zeros just to be more of a fucking badass. Now, fast forward a few months, 24 October 1944, in the first part of the Battle of Leyte Gulf in the Philippines, he becomes, as mentioned, the only American pilot to achieve ace in a day status on 2 separate occasions. And this was a day when, and this is absolutely true, the Japanese were just trying to bug out and get back home. They were beaten. They knew they'd been beaten. They just wanted to GTFO as quickly as possible. McCampbell and his wingman, 2 guys took on 60 enemy aircraft. 6-0. 60. 2 on 60.
Can I pause that right there for a second?
Yeah.
Damn.
Right?
And I know the bravado of a pilot. Those guys climbed in those aircrafts with absolutely every intention of splashing every single one of them boys.
And he would have earned his second instance of ace in a day status if he had only shot down 5 that day. But 5 was not good enough. He shot down 9. He shot down 7 zeros and 2 Oscars.
He almost double aced.
Yeah, he almost double aced in a day when he was already an ace in a day previously. So chew on that, Chad action. and at the time, the 9 was a U.S. single mission aerial combat record. And during this, and during that same action, his wingman shot down 6. So it's not like his wingman was just flying cover for him so he could get all the glory. These guys both got all the glory. 15, you're going into a 2 on 60 fight, and you shoot down 15 between the 2 of you, and you return without a scratch.
You know what they say, if God be for us, then who be for them?
And when he gets back, he can't even land on his own carrier because the Essex has got too much traffic on the deck. So he has to divert to the Langley, which is, the Langley is really old by this point. She is America's first aircraft carrier back in the 20s. By this point in the Second World War, she's been converted into a seaplane tender. But there is no other deck where McCampbell can land unless he wants to ditch in the sea. So congratulations, Commander. You just shot down 9 enemy aircraft. You became an ace in a day for the second time. And we hope you don't die. Here's your alternate landing deck.
The postage stamp.
Yep.
Good luck. Good God, man.
And when he lands back on Langley, he has 2 rounds of ammo remaining. And he's on bingo fuel. He has like two drops of gas in his tank. Used up all his gas, all his ammo.
Well, that's the purpose. Ain't no point in bringing it back.
Yep. I mean, you want to talk about things that signify a very capable pilot? I mean, in addition to the combat exploits, knowing exactly how much ammo and fuel you have left and using up every last bit of it, I mean...
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's kind of part of being a pilot, though. You've got to know what your equipment can do, what it can handle, and how far you can push it. And he knows exactly how far he can push it, obviously.
That's a good call that Danny Hahn just made. Audie Murphy. I actually did an Audie Murphy video back. It feels like a year or 2 ago. I'll try and find the link.
That's YouTube time, so it's probably 6 months.
But yeah, Audie Murphy, certifiable badass.
Apparently playing.
I mean,
chat.
almost an impossible badass. I mean, you read about that dude's feats of badassery, and if you wrote a fictional screenplay, you would get laughed out of the office. Like that would ever happen. Come on. But it did.
That's how a lot of these stories are, though. When you get to the Medal of Honors, some of these stories, if you made a movie out of it, you would have to cut out the more outrageous parts of it, because, and okay, I compared it like to a video game moment. everybody has those moments in games when you've been trying to accomplish a particular thing and you can't do it. And so you do something absurd and it works, right? These are the cases of people doing something absurd and it working, and you get a Medal of Honor.
Hey, Ajot's here.
Yeah, she's in here.
What's up, Ajot?
She got tagged. See?
You think we could get her to join us?
I don't know. She's pretty snooty nowadays. Maybe.
Let me find that. Let me find that damn link, and I'll throw it up here just in case she's feeling frisky.
Frisky. Skadoosh. I may have accomplished it. You check it out. But pulling down an ace in a day. You did accomplish. I did. To be able to splash 6 planes in one action is impressive. Beyond impressive. Just coming home alive is good a damn enough, to be honest.
Damn right.
But that's not.
Just getting back and sticking the landing and being still alive is certifiably badass. Especially when you're not even landing on your own damn carrier. I mean, that's the exclamation point on top of a day of total badassery.
Where does he sit for lunch when he gets there? I guess wherever the hell he wants.
Yeah, exactly. Wherever the hell he wants.
He routed half the freaking enemy in the sky, and his buddy.
You just splashed 9. Welcome to our vessel, sir. What would you like for lunch?
We have grits and more grits. What's the line? We got good news and bad news. There's nothing to eat but bullshit, but there's a lot of it.
We've got lots of powdered mashed potatoes.
Oh, great. Ooh, boy, flashbacks. I don't like it. Boy, that reminds me of Dick Best at Midway, who sunk one Jap carrier before lunch, went back, had lunch, and then sunk a second Jap carrier after lunch. Oh, this is the part about the crazy carrier landing.
Badly with anti-aircraft fire. I couldn't lower my wheels in the normal manner. I had to blow them down by an emergency method we had. I couldn't get the tail hook down.
Did anybody else picture him in there inside with a panel snatched up out of the bottom, stomping on the wheel with the emergency method they had?
Yeah.
Just cracking off on it real hard. It's almost here. We're going to see her soon.
The anticipation's killing me.
Yeah. You'll never know what it's like until you finally meet her. Oh, there she is.
Oh,
and she's all Christmassy.
Powdered mashed potatoes? Is that what you said?
That's what the man said. That's what he said.
That's what the man said.
Ew.
Greetings and salutations.
Yep. That means never join the Navy in World War II.
Well, if I come across time travel, I will try my best to abide by those rules.
This is our first ever Blast Radius 3-way. This is a momentous occasion.
Can I do the sound effect?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to do the sound effect. That's going to be great.
Ooh,
There's something wrong with me.
There's several things wrong with you, but we don't hold it.
Oh. All right. So, do you have any idea what we were talking about?
Nope.
Medal of Honor winners.
Okay.
Double Medal of Honor winners. And aces in a day.
Aces in a day is what we're currently on. So, we've got this one dude. What's his name? McCampbell?
Yep. David McCampbell.
Yeah. And homie almost double aced in an afternoon. He went up with a buddy. It'd be like you and your homie going, there's 60 guys coming to start some trash. Get your pea shooter. We're going up. Who? The squad? No, just me and you. I don't trust those bastards to fly with me.
And between the two of them, they shoot down 15 and come back without a scratch. 15 out of the 60.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like
25% for those fans keeping score at home.
right? And yeah, no, homie putting in work.
And for us in America, McCampbell is our only example of a guy who earned ace in a day status on 2 separate occasions. But if we want to expand it to the Luftwaffe, would you believe the Germans had a guy who became an ace in a day 18 different times?
Homie, well, okay. Now, back up. You got to remember this occurred during the early days of the war. A lot of those splashed were like barely airplanes.
Well, yes. I mean, part of the equation is that you have to consider the quality of the Soviet Air Force in the middle of 1941 during the opening phases of Operation Barbarossa. Let's just say they had plenty of planes to throw at the Germans, but not necessarily competent pilots in equal numbers.
Yeah, but also this is another point.
But
The planes that they had were basically modified, barely modified crop dusters.
Yeah, and you know, the Russians have always had a particular mode of warfare that they prefer, and it was true even up
Those
until
are
the
bombs
Soviet era.
they're
The
loading.
Russians have always been more than willing to sacrifice just huge, massive amounts of casualties if they think it can degrade the progress of the enemy. And they've been doing that for centuries, just send human wave after human wave after human wave, and eventually the enemy gets exhausted from killing you.
Yeah,
And
they run.
then you've got an opening.
Russia's secret weapon against absolutely every invasion has always been the ability to turn and look at the populace and go, "They're coming, boys. We need somebody to get out there and slow them down as much as you can while we get all these women and children out of here." And the trains start running full all the time, and then it just becomes a slog, because the problem with Russia is there's so many damn Russians. They're everywhere.
Well, yeah, and they're so damn much territory. And
Well, by the time
like we've talked about before, the Russians, when they're being invaded, they always retain the option of just falling back and back and back and back and back until your supply lines are so overstretched that they can just start picking you off and slowly degrading your ability to fight. And all of a sudden, you're Napoleon in 1814, returning with 70,000 men when you left with 500,000.
with no shoes because they ate their boots on the way back.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need any cold weather gear. We're going to be in Moscow by Halloween. Yeah, let us
Right?
know how that works out.
Because here's the thing. Part of that Russian doctrine in there has to do with pulling back, leaving small pockets of resistance behind. And these pockets of resistance do virtually nothing except screw up roads and bridges. That's it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And,
They
and
just
the
pester the living shit out of everybody walking.
and those partisans play just as important a part as the regular military does, because it's all part of the equation of overextending the attacking enemy and just, you know, degrading their ability and their will to fight until you've just completely wrecked them.
Damn near killed them.
Damn near killed them. Sorry.
Send meatballs.
There's something wrong with you too. But seriously, just don't attack Russia in the winter. Just don't do it. It ain't worth it. Ace in a day, double ace in a day. Do we have anybody who's pulled a double ace in a day that we know of?
We've got an 18-time ace in a day if you want to extend it to the Germans.
We can yeah, we'll go check him out.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about some Eric Hartmann. And for you South Park fans, I said
I
Eric
was just
Hartman,
saying-
not Eric Cartman.
Oh, nope. We're not showing that one. We'll just have to talk about it. That is an instant takedown. I know this guy. We're not doing it. Simon Whistler.
Oh yeah.
You'll make it 16 seconds into that video. And it don't matter what you do. If you mute it, it doesn't matter. They will take you down while you're still streaming.
Eric Hartman finished the war with 352 aerial victories. 345 Soviet, 7 American, which tells you about all you need to know about the quality of his opposition.
And this was who again?
Eric Hartman, he's a Luftwaffe. His nicknames are the Kid and the Black Devil. Survived the war, unlike most German fighter pilots, lived to the ripe old age of 71. And served quite a few years in the West German Air Force after that whole World War II business got through with, and a lot of Nazis wound up becoming our friends, is all I'm saying.
You're muted.
Obviously, I'm muted. It's because I finally found something we can use over here.
Greetings, this is Greg.
Hello, Greg.
The topic of the German super aces seemed to come up a lot, and the pilot generally considered to be at the top of that list is Eric Hartman. He's credited with 352 aerial victories. He survived the war, and according to most, was never shot down. Spoiler alert, I think his kill numbers are legit, and I'll explain that later using some factors I haven't seen others consider. However, I'm not buying the never shot down bit. So let's dive in. Shot down.
For those fans keeping score at home, that makes him an ace 70 times over.
Fired.
That is wild. Wow.
7-0.
Like I said, I don't know if I've got that on my PlayStation, bro.
No, even notwithstanding the
Maybe the plane
quality
gets
of
hit.
his opposition, there's no way you can minimize the badassery of that achievement. You just can't. Even if your opponents are trying to get shot down, that's a badass achievement.
I was just fixing to say, if your opponents are flying crop dusters and actively dusting crops on crops you know where they will be at, I still couldn't promise you I could splash that many.
Exactly.
Wild.
Because it's not a simple matter to shoot down an airplane from another airplane. I think most people like to think it's a fairly simple matter, but you're shooting from a moving platform toward a moving target. There's all kinds of trigonometry in there, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and best you can do, honest to God, this is something that anytime I'm trying to teach someone to shoot anything, I'm like, okay, so at first you have to do everything very technically because you have to learn how to do this. But there will come a point in your brain where it would just click and you won't do none of that math, none of that. Because you'll just pull the trigger and hit and be like, how'd that happen? I didn't do any of the things I was supposed to. Yeah, you did. You just didn't think about
it.
Well, yeah, because flying in the airplane and shooting at the target are two completely separate and only tangentially related tasks.
Yeah. The only related in so much as you're being shot at in the first place.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, Maverick said that all the time in Top Gun. Don't, just do it. Don't think.
News for you. If you're cruising along and you see another squadron over there and they don't turn and engage and you don't turn and engage, well, you just didn't see that squadron. You just keep moseying on. Because that happened a lot. I just don't feel like having a dog fight today. Let's just go in the clouds for a minute, let them go away.
Yeah,
and in the first war, that was even more of a closely run thing if you were wanting to be a fighter pilot, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you go and click on those Wikipedia articles of World War I flying aces, every single one of them almost didn't survive the war. Killed. And, a big part of that is that the British and the Germans and the French alike, they all agreed that in the First War, well, we don't want to give our pilots parachutes. We don't want to motivate people to jump out of perfectly good airplanes. If we don't give them parachutes, then they will be more motivated to not get killed.
Really? They didn't have parachutes?
They did not have parachutes in the First War.
Holy fuck.
Except for there's the small caveat to that is toward the end of the war, but before the Bolshevik Revolution, the Russians did do some experimentation with airborne landings where they actually had guys with parachutes sitting on the wings of the airplane, and they would just slide off when it was time for him to jump. But yeah, aside from that, absolutely nobody in the First World War in an airplane had a parachute.
Oh no, hell no.
And another point with the First World War, a lot of those planes at that point were largely made of cotton and paper with dope on it. They were using rocket fuel.
String and balsa wood in some cases. Just the flimsiest building materials you can imagine, because the engines were still so underpowered that's how light the aircraft had to be in order to generate enough thrust to get the fucking thing in the air.
And I believe that if you had given those pilots the opportunity to take a parachute with them, most of them would have turned it down as dead weight.
Yes, and they would have seen it as unsporting and ungentlemanly.
Yep.
Because that's just the way men think about things. It's it's kind of unavoidable.
This is the same war in which the opposing airplanes would meet and cross just to get a good look at who they were fighting. Then they would pair off and fight. They didn't start developing wingman concepts until later in the First World War, and dogfighting was just something done by the seat of your pants. There was no doctoring for that trash.
Right.
Yeah. Well, dogfighting really only happens in earnest once they have invented the interrupter gear that enables your machine gun to fire through your propeller blades.
Yeah, the Vickers. The Vickers is what
Vickers. Because up until that point, it's well nigh impossible to line up your shot while you're piloting the aircraft. And if you hit the guy, it's just a matter of dumb luck, basically. But once you have the interrupter gear, then you can aim your guns just by aiming the nose of the airplane, and then that changes the whole equation of air-to-air combat. And besides which, for the first couple of years of that war, aerial combat meant pilots shooting pistols at each other, and that's not even an exaggeration.
That's not a joke. That's why I was over here doing like this. Is like hell. The first 2 years of that war involved, no joke, pilots throwing bricks at people, at each other. Pilots trying to sneak up on other airplanes and drop their lunch into the airplane, try to pour stuff on them.
And the first aerial bombing missions involved pilots just tossing grenades towards the ground. Yeah.
Wow.
There's no doctoring. None of this had ever been done before. No one.
They were making it up as they went.
Yeah. An airplane was a brand new platform with a brand new concept, and people were like, okay, well, attack ground targets. An airplane is virtually useless at that point for attacking ground targets.
Yeah. But the thing that it's really useful for is artillery range and fire control.
Yeah, reconnaissance.
You can have an airplane up in the air, and obviously it gets much more useful when you develop radio communication, but that's another thing that only happens toward the end of the war. But up until then, you send a spotter aircraft up, you have him write down where all your artillery shells are landing, and then he gets back down on the ground and gives the paper to a guy and says, which is not a very good way of adjusting your aim in real time. But once you attain real time air-to-ground radio communication, then it becomes a useful thing for artillery. Then you can say immediately, this shot landed off by this much, so adjust to these coordinates, and then it becomes
which makes sense. But to have to do it in a war, that's just crazy nuts.
That's what I was fixing at. Keep in
Yeah.
mind, at this point in time, your most accurate and rapid method of communication was freaking carrier pigeon. Not joking. That airplane could go up and come back in 20 minutes. Whereas that,
That's something
Yeah.
I often mention to people that I don't think is widely appreciated enough. The fact that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, the fastest that it was possible to transmit people or information was the speed of a galloping horse. All the way up until you get to the locomotive. Thousands of years. A horse is is as fast as you can transmit information from one place to another.
the absolute pinnacle of communication. Well, no, that's person. That's person. A carrier pigeon can do it much quicker.
Right, and obviously you have signaling methods whereby like on the Great Wall of China, from one guard tower to the next, you had a very primitive form of what we would call Morse code, where you could use an open flame and just cover the flame and expose it to transmit simple word messages across a distance of miles. But that was the best you could do.
Do semaphore.
Naval flag signaling, baby.
Do it to music.
England expects that every man will do his duty.
Mm-mm.
All right, so we're double acing it up over here. No, we're double Medal of Honor in it up. No, we're ace a day acing a day.
Or we could talk some Dick Bong.
Dick Bong?
Dick Bong, who is not a Medal of Honor winner, but he is the top American ace of the Second World War.
Oh, it's
Okay.
a person. Okay.
Yes.
And his name really is Dick Bong. If I could change my name to Dick Bong, I would do it in a heartbeat. That's just me.
Captain Dick Bong.
Captain Dick Bong.
Amen, sister.
And unfortunately, he didn't survive the war. He died just right at the tail end, at the beginning of August of 45, after he had already been pulled out of combat, and he was a test pilot at that point and got killed in some stupid crash of some stupid experimental aircraft, and so went our greatest aerial hero of the war, which is a hell of a damn shame that he should not even go out in combat, but in a stupid test flight.
Exactly.
Wow. Really?
Oh, I was wrong. I misspoke. He did win the Medal of Honor. Let me read out the citation. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action above and beyond the call of duty in the Southwest Pacific area from October 10 to November 15, 1944. Though assigned to duty as gunnery instructor and neither required nor expected to perform combat duty, Major Bong voluntarily and at his own urgent request engaged in repeated combat missions, including unusually hazardous sorties over Balikpapan, Borneo, and in the Leyte Gulf area of the Philippines. His aggressiveness and daring resulted in the shooting down of 8 enemy airplanes during this period.
Magnificent.
And he actually won his Medal of Honor after he was supposed to have been retired from active combat, because he was that great of a hero and had so many kills that he was seen as far more valuable from a public relations standpoint than it would be to have him still engaged in active combat.
That's what you do when you're an absolute boss, Chad.
Fucking A.
You retire, come back and do it again. Screw it.
It was actually a very early jet aircraft he was flying when he had his fatal crash, the P-80 Shooting Star. The fatal flight was his 12th one. He had a total of 4 hours on the type. The plane's primary fuel pump malfunctioned during takeoff, and Bong either forgot to switch on the auxiliary fuel pump or for some reason was unable to do so. He ejected from the plane but was too low for his parachute to deploy, which is a hell of a damn shame also.
Dang.
Yeah. When you do everything right and you're just too damn low to have your chute deploy properly.
Ain't that a bitch?
Oh, something I didn't know until I started investigating aces in a day. Did you know Chuck Yeager was an ace in a day? I did not know that.
Yeah, no, I had read that. He was on there was a mission in one of the flight simulators I used to have where you could do the Jaeger mission. And that was what it was called, Jaeger mission, and you had to go out and splash 6. I think it was. That was the minimal. There were like 8 or 10 you could get, but and you're in. It's kind of weird because in that mission, I think you start out in a damaged aircraft.
Oh,
if I'm not mistaken. It's got like a flat loose or something. Because he had reported damage before the encounter occurred.
I've got Yeager's report from the battle if you want me to read it out.
Oh, sure.
I was leading the group with Cement Squadron and was roving out to the right of the first box of bombers. I was over Steinhuner Lake when 22 Me-109s crossed in front of my squadron from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. I was coming out of the sun and they were about 1.5 miles away at the same level of 25,000 feet. I fell in behind the enemy formation and followed them for about 3 minutes, climbing to 30,000 feet. I still had my wing tanks and had close up to around 1,000 yards coming within firing range and positioning the squadron behind the entire enemy formation. 2 of the Me-109s were dodging over to the right. One slowed up, and before I could start firing, rolled over and bailed out. The other Me-109, flying his wing, bailed out immediately after as I was ready to line him up in my sights. I was the closest to the tail end of the enemy formation, and no one but myself was in shooting range, and no one was firing. I dropped my tanks and then closed up to the last Jerry and opened fire from 600 yards using the K-14 sight. I observed strikes all over the ship, particularly heavy in the cockpit. He skidded off to the left. I was closing up on another. Sorry, I lost my place. Sorry, I've almost got it.
Failure.
I was closing up on another Me-109, so I did not follow him down. Lieutenant Stern, flying in blue flight, reports this EA on fire as it passed him and went into a spin. I closed up on the next Me-109 to 100 yards, skidded to the right, and took a deflection shot of about 10 degrees. I gave about a 2-second burst, and the whole fuselage split open and blew up after we passed. Another Me-109 to the right had cut his throttle and was trying to get behind. I broke to the right and quickly rolled to the left on his tail. He started pulling it in and was pulling a 6G dive. I got a lead from about 300 yards and gave him a short burst. There were hits on the wings and tail section. He snapped to the right 3 times and bailed out when he quit snapping at around 18,000 feet. I did not black out during this engagement due to the efficiency of the G suit. Even though I was skidding, I hit the second Me-109 by keeping the bead and range on the EA. To my estimation, the K-14 sight is the biggest improvement to combat equipment for fighters up to this date. The Me-109s appeared to have a type of bubble canopy and had purple noses and were mousy brown all over. I claim 5 Me-109s destroyed. Oh, so that was actually his initial report right after the fact.
Didn't he catch one almost by accident when he was slipping on that first one? One dude jumped out because his engine got hit.
Yeah,
He said, "Screw that shit."
It's great how the first 2 guys just wanted to get the hell out of their airplanes rather than doing battle with Chuck Yeager.
What was he flying?
He was flying Mustang.
Okay. Well, shit, I might jump out. If I was flying in a 109 and a Mustang showed up, dude.
Oh, I know. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Yeah, when the Mustang came on the scene, that changed a whole lot of arithmetic for a whole lot of enemies.
That 109 going into a 6G dive almost ripped that thing apart.
I know. I was just about to say the same thing. Like, how could you put that thing in a 6G dive and have it even stay together?
That's probably why he bailed. I mean, it's like started hearing thing comes loose.
Yeah, it could be. Like, I don't even want to attempt doing battle with a P-51. I'm just going to take my chances with my parachute.
The P-51 was one of the first airplanes that could reliably black out a pilot without failing. I mean, up until this point, you're talking like the 109 could do it, but it was like on the very edge of its performance rating, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
to do that trash and just scramble your ass. It didn't care.
In terms of sheer performance, the P-51 in the European theater and the P-38 in the Pacific theater, they both completely changed the equation as far as the enemy was concerned, because the Germans, their Me-109s just couldn't cope, and the Japanese, their Zeros, couldn't cope with the P-38 either. So it all kind of became elemental at that point, or elementary, I mean.
It was pretty elemental. When they're faster, bigger, and the P-38 was ridiculous. That thing carried so much firepower. It wasn't a fighter.
Speed, maneuverability, firepower, the whole smash, dude.
But it's still a bigger airplane than your average fighter, and it carries like that. There were some of those things that were kitted out with like 4 Meduses. Like, it was ridiculous the amount of firepower coming out of the nose end of those things.
And the thing is so unwieldy looking. When you look at it, it shouldn't be able to outperform the aircraft that it outperformed, but it did, and that's, aeronautical engineering 101, I guess.
Well, Zero had a really nasty tendency to flood out if you went into a counterclockwise rotation. So when they would go into a dive, they would always turn left and down, because if you twisted that central screw too fast to the right, it would make it skip a fire, because it would flood out. It would flood fuel into the cylinder on top that was firing. And so they always did like a weird little belly right before they attacked. And that was one of the things that gave the Lightning the ability to outperform them.
Yes. And then Jimmy Thatch invents the Thatch weave to as a counter to that tactic. And the rest is history.
Right.
I think we need to talk. I think we need to talk about Jimmy Thatch now.
I'm sorry, we don't have time, bro.
God damn it! Oh yeah, God, where does the time go?
I damn thee, but you can call me Sasquatch.
Yeah, we always talk about a quarter to a third of the things we plan on talking about.
That's usually how it goes.
But I guess that's the point of having a weekly show, then, isn't it?
Right.
Amen.
So what have we got planned for next week? Do we know?
Throw out some ideas.
How far back are we willing to take some of this stuff? Can we go back to colonial history of America? Are we just doing American battles?
We can deep dive as far as deep as you want to dive.
I mean, if we're covering Admiral,
that's what she said,
right? If you're covering Horatio Nelson, we're not just doing American battles. So pretty much anything's open, right?
Oh, everything is fair game.
Okay. I think next week I'm going to bring in the last war chief. Excuse me. And then the next guy who tried real hard. And he did steal an elephant, but the Navajo chiefs decided an elephant is not a horse. He was in Vietnam. What are you supposed to do? He did all the things a war chief needed to be a war chief, except still a horse. And nowhere in Vietnam did anyone have a horse.
And I say again, if Ernest Evans is not an official war chief, he damn well should be. And I will take up his cause with the, what tribe was he? I think he was a Cherokee. I will take up his cause with the fucking tribe.
I can't remember. All right. Ajot, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and good evening, because we're leaving.
Oh, good evening. see you later. No, but AJ, I do 1A stuff and funny stuff, and I just do me. So yeah.
Okay. Kat, talk us out.
Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here on the Blast Radius. We always have a good time, and thank you very much to AJOT for joining us this evening. Delightful as ever. Thank you to Caucasian Sasquatch for being the best co-host in the business. We will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, 5 Eastern. No, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Until then, see you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
3, 2, 1, 0.
You cannot subvert an enemy which doesn't want to be subverted. Subversion is the term, if you look in a dictionary or criminal code to that matter, usually is explained as a part of activity to destroy things like religion, government system, political, economical system of a country. Starting from Hollywood movie makers to professors of political science and quote-unquote experts on Soviet affairs, Kremlinologists as they call themselves. No James Bond nonsense.